Hello, I'm Mrs. Jansen, and today in our art, we're going to create warm and cool overlapping circles. Our first vocabulary word today is overlap. This means to cover part of something by going over its edge. To cover part of the same space. Let's look at the blue and red circles. Notice how they overlap. Now let's look at the color wheel together. You will notice that there's a diagonal line that divides the color wheel into what's called warm and cool colors. Notice all the warm colors you see. There are reds, oranges, yellows, and pink. Let's look closely at those cool colors. You see blues, purples, and greens. Here's some examples in nature of warm colors. Here we see the reds, the oranges, and the yellows, as well as the pink. Now let's look at the cool colors. We see the blue of the water and the sky, the blues and the greens as we look at the peacock, the beautiful blue Carner butterfly, and the purple flowers. Here's some examples of warm and cool colors in artwork. On the left, you're looking at a painting created by contemporary artist Leonid Efremov. Notice the reds, the oranges, and the yellows you see as this artist painted the leaves on the trees as well as the ground. On the right, you see a work of art created by historic artist Pablo Picasso. He titled this The Old Guitarist. Notice that he used cool colors in his art, many different tones of blues. Now it's time to create our artwork. Please have a paper, pencil, and crayons ready. We will be drawing circles together. Please ask your family permission to use a non-breakable drinking cup or the top or lid from a jar. If you're using the top or lid from a jar, make sure, for example, if it's from a jar of jelly or jam, that it's clean before you use it. If you don't have a circle to trace, you definitely can draw these circles carefully by hand. You'll see my screen change so that we can draw together. Before we get started today, I want to talk to you about making choices for your art. We just learned about warm and cool colors, and I want you to know today that as we create this art, you can use only warm colors on your art if you choose to, or maybe you choose to use only cool colors. You may decide that you'd like to use both. I also want you to know that our piece of paper creates a really large work of art, and that you do have a choice to create it on a smaller piece of paper. It's entirely up to you. So first I'm going to show you some examples before we get started. So this shows warm colors with overlapping circles on a full sheet of paper. Here you see an example of the cool colors. And next, here's an example of warm and cool colors together, with black for the background, the spaces in between. And this is an example of the same type of art that we're creating today, except it's on a half sheet of paper. So I'll let you decide what works best for you. Let's all start with our paper landscape style. Remember, in art we have paper styles, and if it's landscape, it's horizontal, sideways, or across. Whatever circle that you have, place it on your paper, and we're all going to arrange these in different ways. So everyone's art will look different, but what you need to remember when you're tracing is that you need to press on the object firmly so it doesn't slide around, and try hard not to pick up your pencil until you're all the way around. It's okay if some of your circles go off the page. You're going to notice this first one I chose to start toward the top left corner, and it's going off the page. I need to remember that I'm creating what's called overlapping circles, so the next circle I draw needs to cover part of the circle I've already drawn. We're all going to be making different choices. We're going to decide where we start the circles and where we cover them. Whatever size paper you have, our goal right now is to fill this with overlapping circles. So every time you trace a circle, make sure the next circle you trace covers it. You can cover it in different ways. You don't always have to cover or overlap on the side. You can overlap a circle in more than one place. So notice how I'm tracing this circle, and it overlaps that circle in addition to the other two that overlap it. So now on the side, as I trace this circle, it goes off the page. I only have to trace the part that's on the page, and this circle also overlaps two circles. So take your time, do your best work, make sure that you don't feel rushed. It's okay if you have a small space in between your circles. Notice that this is an open space, and I'm about to create another one. So as you're working, you're making choices. You're deciding how you arrange these circles in your artwork, and you're also deciding how you use overlap. When we overlap, we actually create shapes within each circle. One of the best things about art is we all make it differently, and everyone's art is going to look different. Our art always shows the choices we make. If you're an artist in our group today and you decided that you wanted to work on a smaller piece of paper, you might be finished tracing your circles. You also might be an artist that decided instead of one large work of art, you're deciding to do two smaller ones. And that's up to you. So remember, we're filling the page. And when we decide on the arrangement of things in our artwork, we're deciding on what's called the composition. And that's a word that means the arrangement of things within a work of art. So notice as we continue to trace circles that we don't always have to overlap it exactly the same way. And it's also okay if the open spaces in between our circles are different. They make interesting shapes. All right, now, once you've traced all your circles, the next thing you're going to do is decide, are you going to work with warm or cool colors or both? So remember, if you're working with the warm colors, you'll be working with reds, oranges, yellow, and pink. And as we're talking, I'm taking the crayons out of my crayon box. So if you're deciding that you'd like to work in warm or cool colors, make sure that you set aside all those colors first. Maybe you're an artist that's decided that you'd like to work with both. And if you'd like to work with both, you may do that. So you have to remember that this is your artwork and you're making choices that are best for you and your art. The blues, the greens, and the purples are the cool colors. All right, so before you get started coloring, I want to just talk to you about how I went about creating my art, the way we do things as artists is called a technique. And as we work, we all develop or build upon our skills and work differently. I'm just going to show you one example. So, for example, I'm going to start with cool colors. I've decided that I want to place blue in the center of one of these circles. So the first thing I do is I trace that shape inside the middle of that circle. And then this helps me when I color it in. I just color up to the line that I just traced. So when you're adding color with crayon, it does pick up the texture of the paper. That's why you see a lot of the white little spots. And that's a good thing, to see texture in art. So don't feel like you have to work really hard to cover up the texture of the paper. You just don't want to have large, open white spots. So this is how I worked. I decide that I want to have blue in the center of a circle, and then I would look at my whole work of art and I would decide where else I'd like to have blue. Would I like to keep blue within the center of the circles, or would I like to put it somewhere else? So I make that choice, and usually in my art, I repeat a color 3 times. It's up to you what you do. So the whole time, you're looking at your artwork with every choice you make. So whatever color you've chosen to use, go ahead and you can trace a shape that you see inside a circle. And then start adding color to it. You do not need to repeat the color in your art 3 times. That's something that I do that I shared with you. Remember, you're the artist, and you decide what's best for you and your artwork. So I decided to color inside 3 shapes, and then the next thing I need to decide, am I going to continue with a different color on the inside of shapes, or am I going to choose a different color and then work on the smaller shapes? So every time I get to a new area, I'm going to trace it first with the crayon, and then I'm going to stay inside that area. It also helps keep a different color out of that area. So remember to trace it first, and that gives you a line that you color up to. You do not have to color every circle the same with the colors. They can be different. It actually makes your art very interesting to look at if there's differences in it. So I decided that I was going to color 2 green sections on that one, and then I decided that I was just going to color 1 green section on the other. So whatever your choice is, warm, cool, or all colors, one thing that you need to know is if you decide that you want to add a color in the background, for example, in this multicolored example, I added black. I would do the color black last. So I'd color all the circles first, and then I'd color the empty spaces. And then in this example, I decided to outline with black. And in this cool example, I did outline, but in this example, I decided to outline with a dark blue. I used the dark blue to outline the circles and the shapes inside. When you look at this warm example, you're going to notice that I colored all the circles. The space between the circles is this raspberry color, and then I use that raspberry color to outline the pink shape inside. I know you've got great ideas, so you can keep making your own choices, and I hope you enjoy creating your overlapping warm and cool circle artwork. Please know that you don't have to finish this today. Art takes time. So I hope that you'll do your best, and if you need a break, take a break from it and go back to this in your free time. I hope you enjoy creating art. It was great to make art with you, and I look forward to making art with you again soon. Have a great rest of the day.